Welcome to Chernobylite review, you hazmat suit wearing bastards. Chernobylite is an interesting FPS survival game that takes place in proper Chernobyl recreation. Developers 3D scanned the area and made it into the game, or something like that. Not the usual genre I cover on this channel, but something drew me to this game, and now I'm glad I sank over 25 hours into it to finish the story and explore everything that there is. Chernobyl looks fantastic here. Details are incredible, which just adds to atmosphere, tension, fear and mystery. There are 5 different areas we can visit, from Red Forest to Pripyat Port. Areas don't change, but objectives and enemies do, which adds enough dynamic. Areas aren't humongous, but compact to have enough exploration while remaining interesting. Also, there aren't that many enemies, which is good in this case. To me, it adds a lot more tension and atmosphere because Chernobyl itself is so interesting and the game is quite atmospheric. Especially because death comes easy. It would be annoying having to deal with enemies every 10 meters while trying to gather resources. Chernobylite is structured this way. You have HQ of sorts where missions are being chosen and teleported to, thanks to portal generator powered by Chernobylite material. Missions take place in one of 5 areas I have mentioned before. Over time, Chernobyl becomes more dangerous due to increasing radiation, monster and soldier count. Your decisions also influence how world is shaped in a way, but as far as I recall, it means more or less enemies on the map. This is where we touch on build mechanic. It is crucial mechanic that can be done during missions and in base. During missions you can craft traps, crafting stations and environmental machines that help offset some of the growing problems. Environmental machines are particularly interesting as each zone has its own problems. For example, some zones have more radiation than others. Some have more storms, although I still don't know what storms are all about except for spooky aesthetics and worse vision. Some have more monsters, while others have more soldiers. So these machines can slow down or even completely negate storms and radiation, but that requires a lot of resources. Anything built in field can be destroyed by the enemy if they find it during patrols, so can't build wherever it pleases your irradiated arse. Base upgrades are important for progression, but not crucial. They enable better weapons, armor, tools and lots of other stuff like companion comfort, generators, anti-radiation thingies, air quality and so on. They also make sense to some extent. For example, by building base upgrade called laser cutting machine, radiation levels increase while air quality and companion comfort decreases. Keeping healthy mix is important for long-term success. Some upgrades make no sense though, but it is minor complaint. Why the hell is companion comfort increased by building barrels in HQ? Bring any barrel to your house and see what your spouse or partner will have to say about it. Leave a comment what was the response if you are a legend that actually tried it. Overall, build mechanic is positive as it keeps things more interesting. Enough things to play around with while not being tedious hindrance. It slows down progression a bit, but not to a great degree. Depends how much time player decides to invest in it. So gameplay consists of base building, collecting resources on missions, exploration, combat and stealth. Heavy focus is on stealth as it helps preserving life and ammo that is easily spent on progressively more armored enemies. Stealth is done alright but nothing special. Foliage seems to be a bit overpowered because it makes Igor invisible. I can understand why though. Enemies on higher difficulties hear and see pretty good, so you would be spotted easily if foliage wasn't so useful. Cool mechanic is, since Igor is a scientist, that killing enemies without upgraded stealth kill skill affects his psyche. He kills enemies in a brutal way without the upgrade, so it is understandable. Stealth is enhanced by building traps as it offers things like fireworks that attracts attention, landmines that can kill anything instantly, a simulating trap that drains life of monsters and so on. Dealing with enemies through stealth was always fun for me as I always preferred stealthy approach in any game. Unfortunately, some basic actions like dragging bodies and throwing rocks for distraction are not present. Gunplay, on the other hand, is average. Nothing stands out except that aiming isn't easy. Enemies move left and right with some kind of dodge move, same thing you can do. I like that hitting enemies isn't easy, because it is forcing me to play the game carefully by using cover during gunfights or stealth to avoid it completely. Running away is also an option, but then enemies are searching for you for a couple of minutes. Weapons are done pretty good and it is fun using them, especially because most time is spent outside of combat, so when shooting starts it becomes relief of sorts to just start shooting for a change. Almost every weapon can be modified greatly, which is fantastic. Besides weapons, we can craft armor, bullets, lockpicks, medicine, garden. Everything has its use. Crafting is a positive thing for Chernobylite because it fits the game perfectly. What bugs me is that weapons can't be fired from the hip. Instead, with left mouse button click, we have pathetic melee strike with the weapon. That does nothing. Since this is a survival game of sorts, gathering resources is an important part of it. This is where radar comes into play. It highlights everything in the vicinity, and considering how realistic the game looks, it would be pain in the arse searching for stuff on your own. Radar has cooldown though and doesn't highlight enemies, but both of those features can be acquired, which makes game faster and easier to an extent. Enemy diversity isn't that good, only couple monsters next to soldiers. Even though there aren't that many monsters, they are spooky and well done. They move fast, come from nowhere at times and take little bit of effort to take out. Soldiers, on the other hand, don't have good AI, unfortunately. They don't run to cover when engaging, constantly bump into each other, repeat same sentences, barely react to dead bodies of other soldiers in the vicinity. I feel like better AI would enhance experience tremendously. Also, never saw soldiers fighting monsters. I love when two enemy factions battle it out, but here that is missing. Maybe it is doable or just a rare occurrence, no idea. There is a special enemy in the game called Black Stalker. He is integral to the story and hunts Igor every time he stays for too long in one area. Unfortunately, this mechanic is quite weak. He appears way too often. You can kill him every time, but he can come back in every mission, and there are other enemies on the map that can hear sounds of fighting while dealing with the Stalker, which makes it even more annoying. It would be far better if he appeared less often and hunted Igor all over the map without ability to teleport in and out right next to the player. He teleports in, stands there without moving and shoots. Teleports out after a couple of seconds, then teleports back in. Shoots, teleports out, rinse and repeat. They could have done so much more with this to add to atmosphere, fear and tension, but when it's like this, it is just a nuisance.
Посмотрим, на что ты способен.
Now we come to some of the best aspects of Chernobylite, and those are story and companions. I love story of this game. Igor is a scientist that is trying to find his wife, who is also a scientist in Chernobyl. She disappeared under weird circumstances and is now appearing in his dreams, leading him on to find her. I won't spoil anything, but there are twists in the story, interesting characters from the past, big revelations and mystery. Goal is to do power plant heist that failed badly at the beginning of the game. So now Igor needs to gather companions, perform investigations and find tools that are all part of story missions. You can go on heist whenever, but unprepared it is going to end badly. Also, with less tools and investigations conducted, some companions will straight up refuse going to the heist because Igor doesn't have all the info and they aren't feeling that suicidal. It is all interestingly done, with investigations revealing much needed info. To start investigations you have to find clues in each area and complete story missions. Companions send Igor on these missions to gather specific tools like uniforms and explosives that can help in the heist, and to find clues needed for investigations. Investigations are important story-related flashbacks that can be activated after collecting enough information. You're gonna find really interesting stuff in them.
Крысиный горой.
Chernobylite is game of decisions. Throughout story missions you are going to have to make hard choices constantly. These choices range from killing important characters, freeing potentially dangerous NPCs, choosing between companion advice which upsets one you didn't listen, and so on. Some decisions are crucial for last mission because it can play out in many ways, potentially killing off everyone, or in best case scenario it can go without any deaths.
Оливер прав.
Какого хрена? Нельзя этого делать! Не забывай, что
Thankfully, every time Igor dies, he is teleported to some kind of alternative dimension, where he can change decisions made if you have enough Chernobylite resource. So there is a redo option. Companions can straight up abandon Igor if relation level drops too much. So it is important to maintain balance while making story-related decisions if you want fully successful last mission without any deaths. Companions are very interesting and well written. They are completely different to one another with unique characteristics. Tarakan is crazy bastard, Mikhail is a psycho, Olga is cold-blooded machine, Sashko is extravagant thrill seeker, and Oliver is closest to normal. No wonder companion advice is conflicting all the time. Next to story companions, there are other interesting NPCs scattered throughout the zone with interesting backstories. Their purpose is to trade with Igor and at times provide valuable info. Overall, writing is really good when it comes to story companions and other NPCs. Atmosphere in Chernobylite is great. The way game is done, you always feel tension of sorts, especially during early and mid game on first playthrough. Later on you get more comfortable with better weapons and armor. Just the fact that you are experiencing real Chernobyl already pumps up atmosphere. Add on top of that great ambient music and you are in for an atmospheric journey. Facing monsters most of the game is something I have tried to avoid because they can be hard to deal with at times, which adds to horror factor. Sneaking through buildings, exploring every corner, not knowing if something is there or not, is the game gonna throw something else at you? There are also small creepy events that affect Igor's psyche when experienced. These events can occur anywhere, but mostly inside buildings, which makes it spookier. Overall, game has good balance when it comes to map size, enemy numbers with occasional NPCs, resources, story events and smaller spooky events. Visually, game looks great, lots of details in everything, soldiers, monsters, environment, foliage, buildings. There is realistic feel to it, again mostly thanks to Chernobyl itself. Animations are not the greatest, but humans barely move anyway. Monsters have spooky movements resembling horror movies, which is cool and adds to horror element. There is an issue with shaders, however, because game is too dark at times even with high gamma settings, so hopefully they fix that. Audio work is quite good, ambient music is phenomenal, Russian voiceover is great, while English bad to average, so had to switch to Russian. I'm happy with sound effects overall. It is important to listen to the surroundings for enemy footsteps, teleportations and other enemy related things. Weapons sound and feel good too, with headshots sounding especially nasty. Verdict time. Chernobylite is a good game, much better than I thought it would be. Kept me interested throughout and never felt bored. Game has issues, but it won't ruin the experience. Some can be fixed while others, such as AI, cannot, I think. I don't see any potentially huge improvements that would merit higher score than 7, but who knows. If they redo Black Stalker mechanic, add stealth mechanics like throwing rocks and dragging bodies, add firing from the hip, fix AI, which is doubtful, it could reach 8, but to me that doesn't sound realistic. At the moment this game is 7 out of 10 for me, which translates to good game. It is well thought out experience that never got me bored, as I enjoyed uncovering stories, sneaking about, meeting companions and upgrading base. Price is around $30 or euros, which is fair. There is replay value, or at least playing with decisions for different outcomes. Anyway, that is it. Thanks for watching and see you soon.